I think it was the large number of supporters who are strongly against vaccination, and they kind of surrounded the court, quite a large number, and the court's not far from my office. So I think that got the publicity, I think. And also, I think any case involving a young baby who needs an urgent operation, which is being challenged in the courts, does also raise public concern. But I think it's the anti-vax issue that really did sort of raise the concern. There was a lot of supporters for the parents.
Yeah. So at what point was there this intervention to take it to court so that the baby could get the care that it needed?
Well, I think the doctors first did try, that was to do with the heart valve not pumping from the heart through to the lungs. They did try to put a balloon in and open up the valve, but it didn't work. And then they had to, at quite short notice, because they were worried that if they didn't get on with the operation fairly soon, the baby may die. So they gave the parents about 15 minutes warning, which probably did throw them off a little bit. The father didn't get to the meeting, the mother did, and explained that the only operation they could do would require blood, and we don't distinguish between vaccinated and unvaccinated blood. The blood supply doesn't distinguish, and also quite a bit of plasma would be used after the operation, which also would be a mixture of blood donors. And so the mother felt cornered in that situation, and then they came along with one of their supporters and had another meeting, and the supporter, I suppose, took over the meeting and started telling the doctors and everyone in the room that children were dying at the Starship Hospital where the operation was to be carried out because vaccinated blood was used, and that operation communication broke down totally. So the doctors in the hospital felt they had no other option but to go to court and get urgent relief from the court. They could go ahead with the operation without the parents' consent.
Yeah. How common is it in New Zealand to grant a medical guardianship like this?
It's not that common. It used to be used in cases involving Jehovah's Witness parents. It's being used in situations where a child needs cancer treatment and the parents aren't happy with that situation. It's been used where parents have refused an eye operation. So a range. It's not that common. No, it's not that common. It's been used where the question is whether you keep the child alive or you do an extra special operation. It's one of the last ones down in Wellington where it would be very painful for the child to stay alive. So the argument was, should we remove what's happening and let the child die peacefully? In some of those cases, the parents kind of agree with, but they want the doctors to make the final decision. These type of cases are more difficult when the parents are opposed and they have a lot of supporters with them who are arguing that this operation should not go ahead. So it just gets a much bigger public profile, a lot more pressure on everyone, the parents, the doctors and everyone involved.
Yeah, and you're talking about those supporters. There were quite a few high-profile supporters, anti-vaxxers, a former broadcaster. Do you think that they were inflaming the parents and making it even harder for them to make decisions?
Oh, yes. I mean, their lawyer, for example, is an anti-vaxxer herself. Their biggest supporter was also a trained lawyer, and she had been a broadcaster like yourself. So they were reasonably high-profile people, as well as other supporters there as well. So I think that did add to the parents' decision to not want to go ahead with it, although straight after the decision was made by the court, it was announced that the parents had agreed to it, then they changed their mind and had to go back to court again. The lawyer tried for one last bit to get two doctors from America who said, you can wait for another week and try other options. I don't know how they could say that. They've never seen the child, but they put that in. The judge had said no, because his initial order had said he'd want the doctors and the parents to work together and consult each other throughout the operation, but it came to the point where he had to make an order. The operation's urgent, must go ahead pretty much straight away, and the parents are not to obstruct at all. And sadly, in the end, the child had to be removed by the police, and it was videoed by one of the supporters and put on the national news, which didn't really help the situation. But thank God the operation was a great success.
And what happens with the baby now? Does it stay under this medical guardianship until it's recovered?
Well, once the operation recovered, so in other words, there will be ongoing procedures with use of plasma and various things. So the judge said until all the parts of the operation are completed to the doctors plus the post-operative care, and then if that still goes on for a while, the end would be the 31st of January, but it'll probably end earlier than that because all other decisions are for the parents, and they want to get the child back to the parents as quickly as possible and make their normal decisions about the child. But anything post-operative that will be important for the child's recovery will still be under the guardianship of the court.
Mark, the parents had also sought a direct blood donor of their own choice. Could that not have been accommodated?
Yeah, that was part of it. And basically the blood supply gave pretty strong evidence saying it's internationally recognised that direct donor should only be used in cases where it's a rare blood condition. In these sort of cases, you don't need to use it because There is more risk for a start using direct donors because they haven't gone through the blood service, and evidence shows that you've got 3 times the risk of perhaps having contaminated blood than you would through the strict procedures that are used. They still try and use the best strict procedures, but there is more risk involved using direct donors, and it's only used in rare cases. And secondly, I think, as you rightly said, Beverly, there was limited time here, so there wasn't the time to do that.
You mentioned the lawyer being quite strident as well. She's also a very prominent anti-vaxxer. There have been complaints about her behaviour. Do you think she's overstepped the mark?
Well, it's a really tricky one, Beverly. Yeah. I mean, basically, you have to kind of deliberately mislead the court in a reckless sort of a way. And I think she did produce evidence, although it was from people who worked in a veterinary college who said that there is a spike in the vaccinated blood donors that could cause harm to the child. So there was some evidence there, and I think she sincerely believed that evidence. And so in that sense, even though the judge disagrees with her lawyer's submission, doesn't mean that she's misleading the court, as long as there's evidence that she's not being reckless. She's checked out the evidence and did the best she can for her client. It's kind of a thin edge because, just because someone argues for an unpopular cause, that does tend to make it difficult for lawyers to ever take on those sort of cases you have to protect. But I think because she is declared herself to be an anti-vax person, I think that kind of people look at her through a different lens and think she's just pushing her own point of view here. But I think she pushed very hard for the parents, but I don't think she's quite crossed the line, but I think a lot of people do.
That's really interesting. Great to get your analysis of this, Mark. Thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure, Beverly. Good night. Bye.